Hi, and welcome to Old English Outfitters YouTube channel. I'm Alan. So here we are on a beautiful fall day in October 2020. Well, since about March of 2020, we've been selling a lot of guns to people who are looking for home defense weapons. And one of the most popular home defense weapons we've been selling in all different types is the shotgun. Always a good choice. Shotgun's been around for a long time. Multi-purpose weapon. You can use it for hunting. You can use it for home defense. You can use it for all those sorts of things. Clay pigeon shooting. So it's a really interesting weapon. It's a nice home defense tool because it delivers a lot of power against an unarmored target at close quarters. Usually when you go for something like that, because there's lots of shotguns out there, as I'm sure you know, hunting shotguns will have long barrels, 26, 28 inches. Usually on a defense type shotgun, you want something about this size. This happens to be an 870. It's about an 18-inch barrel. 18, 20 inches, 18 and a half, right around that range is usually where you see people using these things for home defense purposes. The other thing normally that you put on a home defense shotgun is a cylinder or an open choke, because you want that shot pattern to not be too tight, because you're going to be shooting at kind of close quarters. You want it to open up a little bit. Now, Hollywood hasn't done us any favors in this, right? We've all seen the movies. Somebody pulls out a shotgun, airplanes fly out of the sky, ships sink, earthquakes. It's a little less dramatic than that in real life, but it can also be more traumatic in real life to the target you're shooting at. So we thought it would be kind of an interesting thing. So many of you have bought shotguns or ammunition for the shotguns you already have, to talk a little bit about that ammunition that you might buy for use on a target in a home defense situation. First thing to think about in that is, how far do you expect to shoot? Home defense, you're probably not going to be shooting 50 yards, right? Unless you got an awfully big house. You're probably going to be shooting pretty close quarters. So, typical shot loads is what you're going to go to. Now, a lot of people have hunting loads. This happens to be 7.5s. How big is a piece of 7.5 shot? It's roughly 1/10 of an inch, a little less, okay? So there's a lot of them in this. This is primarily a hunting load, okay? It's primarily for use against actually two targets, live birds or clay pigeons. It's normally what you use something like this for, okay? So what we're gonna do is because you might have this round, we're gonna shoot it at this first target so you can get an idea what that looks like. We're at roughly maybe 20 feet, a little less, about the distance across a room that you might have to use something like this. All right, let's walk up and take a look at this. There's a lot of really small shot in a load of 7.5s. This hole right here is made by the wad that comes out of the back of the shell, that's carrying that the shot is kind of cradled in when it's in the shell. That's what that hole is, okay? I don't know what that might be, maybe that's the wad hole. Anyway, what we end up with is lots of small holes. Those are those holes that are roughly 1/10 of an inch in diameter. Once again, what is this shot intended for? It's intended for birds. It's not really intended for shooting at larger animals, okay? It's intended for birds. So you have really small, light shot. Now that's not a huge pattern. And one of the points I want to make is, if you're not pointed straight at the target when you shoot, you can miss. You know, Hollywood wants us to believe if you point it down the hallway, that shot pattern will go from wall to wall and ceiling to floor and anything out there is dead. Not necessarily. If you're not pointed straight on, you can miss. This really small shot will make a really nasty wound right there, but you know what it won't do? It won't penetrate really well. Let me say that again. Those really small shot pieces won't penetrate really well. They're made to penetrate on birds, not so much on larger animals like a person if you're defending yourself, okay? All right, so we're gonna back up and put another round on this other target. So we're gonna contrast this just a little bit. Those pellets there are about 1/10 of an inch in diameter, right? Here, every one of the pellets in this is actually about 33 caliber. So really, you're shooting close to a 9mm or a .380 size bullet in diameter, only they're round balls, so they're a little bit lighter. I'm going to bring this into the camera where you can see this. You can actually see the shot stacked in that particular load. There's, I think, 12 pellets in this particular load. Normally, 00 Buckshot comes in 9 pellet loads. There are some 8 pellet loads out there. This one happens to be about 12 pellets. What you're going to notice is we're going to get bigger holes on target. This is designed for use against larger animals. Common round for use against defense or for defense in what? Bear country. This would work on bears to stop them. There are places where this is legal to use, not in Ohio, but in other states, legal to use to hunt deer. So you can use it on larger animals. That makes it a very effective load for anti-personnel use against a bad guy, right? So let's see what this looks like on our next target. All right, let's walk up and take a look. 33 caliber holes each one. There's the wad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Maybe it was only a 9 pellet load. Again, 9's the most common. You see some 12s. I thought this was 12. Looks like it's 9. I want you to notice the size of this pattern. That is not a very large pattern. This is a cylinder bore, an open choke gun. Not a very large pattern. Once again, even more critical, if you're not pointed at the target, you can easily miss. Another factor to consider with 00 Buckshot, if you're using it in a house, those 33 caliber pellets will retain a lot of energy. You miss, and you hit a wall or something behind the target, those things are going to get through that wall, or at least some of them are. Obviously, that depends a little bit on the construction of the house. You got an old house that's got last strips and plaster. It's going to have more of an effect on those than a simple sheetrock house. But if the walls are lightly constructed, that's going to get through. And then you got some downrange hazard on the other side of that wall. Even more critical that you pay attention to where you're shooting. Okay? All right, so still talking 12 gauge here. We're going to go up to one more round on the other target so we can take a look at that. Another really common defense or anti-personnel load in 12 gauge is number 4 Buckshot. Number 4 Buckshot is a nice compromise between the two that we just did. With 00 Buck, you got 33 caliber pellets, about 9 of them. With number 7s or 7.5s, what we got over there, you got pellets that are really small. You got a whole lot of them, okay? Here you're kind of in between. This particular load has, I think, 24 caliber pellets in it. So we got a few more pellets than we do in a 00 load. Not as many as we have in a 7.5, and in between in terms of weight. So let's take a look at that on target number 3 and see what that pattern looks like. Wow, walk up here. This is very interesting. This particular load, number 4 Buckshot, recommended for use inside a house, didn't spread hardly at all in this. Look at this. We got the wad and we got the shot load going right through the center. So all 24 pellets go right in there. Is that even more critical to make sure you're pointed directly at the target? Yeah, absolutely. Or you can easily miss. Still a good compromise load because these pellets being lighter than 33 caliber, if you miss, even though they're kind of clustered together, those individual pellets won't have the downrange energy if you penetrate a wall that 00 Buckshot will. Once again, think about the contrast here. That's not a very big pattern at all. That's like one hole, boom, right through the center. Very effective, but you got to make sure you're pointed. With any of these 3 targets, if you look at these patterns, you got to be pointed on the target. You can easily miss. Number 4s and 00s are the 2 that are usually recommended because they're designed to work on bigger targets, right? You get the idea. 7.5 shots are for small animals. Number 6s, usually you see those used on game like squirrels, rabbits. These 2, 00 Buckshot and number 4 Buckshot, are the ones that are normally suggested for use against people or larger animals. Okay, so we were talking about 12 gauge shotguns. You can use any shotgun for defense, 12 gauge, 20 gauge, they work fine. Sometimes Recoil from a 12 gauge, recoil from a 20 gauge may be too much for some people. So sometimes folks go to a 410. We happen to have this one available to us with a pistol grip. We usually suggest you use more of a full stock. This requires a little understanding of technique to use effectively, okay? But when we talk about shotgun shells, 12 gauge gives you 00 Buckshot, number 4 Buckshot, readily available. You can always find them. Good anti-personnel rounds. In 20 gauge, you don't find 00 Buckshot. You do find number 3 Buckshot, which is only just a little bit smaller. Number 3 works pretty good out of 20 gauge. But what if recoil is just absolutely something you can't handle? 410s don't kick very much. And in the current day and age, we have 410 loads that are designed to use in things like the Taurus Judge revolver, the Smith & Wesson Governor revolver, the Bond Arms Series Derringers, those types of things. So you end up with things like this. This is a 2.5 inch 00 Buckshot. I'm going to bring that into the camera so he can see that. So when we were talking shot sizes, we got like about 1/10 of an inch in number 7.5s. We got 33 caliber in 00. We got 24 caliber in number 4 Buckshot. Here we have a 36 caliber round ball. Now there's not a lot of room in that shell, so we don't have a lot of shot. There's only 3 individual 36 caliber round balls in this shell, okay? That doesn't mean they're ineffective. We're going to put it on this last target here so we can take a look at what the pattern looks like. Walk up here. Now, unless I'm completely blind, that looks to me like one hole. Those are 3 36 caliber round balls, roughly 9mm in diameter each one, that are traveling right behind each other. So they're making essentially one hole. Is that even more critical that you're pointed straight at what you want to shoot? Absolutely. We don't have much recoil here, so if recoil is a concern, it's pretty manageable. With 3 of those things traveling basically one behind the other at this short range, they're not going to spread, obviously. You're going to get a lot of penetration off of them. You got to get penetration against a determined adversary. The 7.5 shot will make a really nasty wound. Will it stop most people? Probably. Nobody I found this morning volunteered for us to shoot at them with it, right? But that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to stop somebody who's determined. 00 Buckshot, number 4 Buckshot, those 00s out of the little 410, you get a lot of penetration, you get a lot of terminal effectiveness out of those loads. So, that's what we wanted to talk about a little bit today, since so many of you have bought shotguns or bought ammunition for the shotguns you already have at home. Critical points to take away from this. Number 1, use some good loads that are going to penetrate. In 12 gauge, number 4 is a good choice, always is, for inside close quarters, okay? In the 410s, the 00s work pretty good. There are other loads, but we stuck with the 00 this morning. The other critical point to take away from this, you have got to be pointed directly at what you're going to shoot. These patterns clearly show they're small enough, in some cases really small, that if you're not pointed at right exactly what you want to shoot, you can easily miss. Just because it's a shotgun doesn't mean it's going to sweep the whole place, okay? All right. Well, that's all we got for right now. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm Alan for Old English Outfitters.